Well, welcome back again this week. You know, a lot of times people don't quite understand where I'm going, and some of the things that I say and include or don't include in some of my remarks. Basically, what I'm saying is that you can't connect the dots and extend the lines unless you believe in a conspiracy. Now, hold it, don't shut me off. Listen for a minute, if you will. You know, a lot of people poo-poo the idea of conspiracy. Conspiracy doesn't exist. And yet Franklin Delano Roosevelt said nothing happens in politics unless it was planned that way. And you know, I could quote Disraeli, the famous 19th century Prime Minister of Great Britain, about conspiracy. I could quote Winston Churchill, the famous 20th century Prime Minister of England, about conspiracy, the same one that we talk about all the time, emanating from the Illuminati through the Carbonarian communist movement. Likewise, Leon Trotsky, who was Lenin's right-hand man and destined to be the head of communist Russia on the displacement or death of Lenin, and rival to Stalin, also claimed that modern communism was an extension of the Carbonari from the Illuminati. You can find this out if you go back to your old histories and do a little research relative to what famous people had to say about conspiracy. It isn't just the John Birch Society, but it has to be done responsibly. It has to be done truthfully. It can't be exaggerated, but it is obvious that a conspiracy must exist. You know, even under the Articles of Confederation, one of the first agencies they produced in the government was the Committee for Detecting and Defeating Conspiracies. Our founders of this great country understood conspiracy. They understood the conspiracies that came from the British, the Spanish, the French, that had influence on the United States. And right after, they began to realize that it was an Illuminist conspiracy in addition that was even far more dangerous. And you can go back and discover this. In fact, John Jay was the first head of this committee for detecting and defeating conspiracies. He is so more or less the father of counterintelligence for the United States. And John Jay, of course, was one of the authors of the Federalist Papers that helped people understand the Constitution and get it ratified. Now, also, and I'd like to have an extensive quote here for you, Abraham Lincoln believed in conspiracies. You know, his famous speech, The House Divided, which he delivered on June 16th, 1858, he said this, quote, "When we see a lot of frame timbers, different portions of which are known to have gotten out at different times and places, and by different workmen, Stephen, Franklin, Roger, and James, for instance, and when we see these timbers joined together, and see they exactly make the frame of a house or mill, and all the tenons and mortises exactly fitting, and all the length and portions of the different pieces exactly adapted to their respective places, and not a single piece too many or too few, not even admitting scaffolding, or if a single piece be lacking, we can see the place in the frame exactly fitted and prepared to yet bring in such a piece. In such a case, we find it impossible not to believe that Stephen and Franklin and Roger and James all understood one another from the beginning, and all worked upon a common plan or draft drawn up before the first lick was struck." And that's what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. We see all these diverse pieces coming together to subvert our country, whether it's in the field of education, environment, energy, free trade, the con, all of these different things are aimed at the Constitution and are going to arrive at the same place to destroy the independence and the Constitution of the people of the United States. And it is a plan. It is all planned to meet and move irrepressibly towards that one structure that they want to build. the house that Hiss built is the way they used to refer to the United Nations. And this house is being built to subvert us. And it's pretty obvious that a plan, whether you call it a conspiracy or not, a plan exists. Now, if you have a plan, somebody planned it. Somebody's implementing the plan. Somebody is the contractor in charge, if you will, of this plan. And so these things may seem diverse and unrelated, but the more you research them, you'll find interlocking directorates, interlocking activists, interlocking organizations that are promoting these things and moving these things forward towards that common goal of a one-world government and destroying the independence of the American people. So, yes, we believe in conspiracy. To us, it is obvious because we've looked at it for quite a while. And until you get that mindset that, yeah, there is a plan, there is a conspiracy, as we said in the beginning, you can't connect the dots. That nothing works. And so a lot of people and a lot of organizations will fuss around with this issue or that issue that may not have anything to do with stopping the overall agenda, this plan of the conspiracy. That's why we in the John Birch Society look at those things, those load-bearing beams in that house that is being built, to yank those beams out, destroy those beams, and cause the house to collapse. Now, if we can't destroy the house completely, at least we're slowing it down. So there are certain issues, very important in many conservatives' lives, that will amount to nothing in the long run relative to the destruction of this plan. Now, let me give you an idea of what I'm talking about, and I've mentioned this before. Don't get all worked up over it, because I don't believe in abortion. Don't even think that I do. But abortion is an issue that in the long run will make no difference whether this house is built or not. I can come out and oppose abortion and be a pro-life candidate for office and then get into the Congress and vote to build this house. And that's what's been happening to a lot of these conservative electorate people. They are very active in conservative causes and voting and so on and so forth. And so their issue, their hot button, is how they vote. And they don't notice these other things out there, such as free trade, the con, the support your local police, and that sort of thing that will have a great deal to do with this totalitarian state coming down the road. So I can say I stand for the Second Amendment, I can say I stand against abortion, and then when I become a governor or whether I become a senator or whatever, I vote again to preserve the Second Amendment, to stop abortion and that sort of thing, but I also at the same time help build those things leading toward that house, the United Nations, by entangling us in foreign entanglements and other things, that by the time this house gets built, then that house will tell us how we will deal with abortion and the Second Amendment and everything else. So I've been I don't know if I'm going to be a hypocrite in every instance, but at least I'm ignorant enough that I don't understand the whole business of what is going on and thereby make these mistakes. One last thing. We talk a lot about the growth of communism in Latin America, that kind of thing. Brazil's economy, scandals shake leader. This is in this morning's Wall Street Journal. And of course we know that Rousseff, and they're starting to say it more and more in these articles, Rousseff was a militant, terrorist, communist leader, blew people up, killed people, that kind of thing. Communists, when they run a country, run it into the ground. That's just the way it is. There's no exceptions. The same way with drug probe, eyes Venezuela elite. Another one out of the Wall Street Journal. You see, we've been trying to tell people for years, and we haven't talked about it on these broadcasts for a long time, that the drug trade is really run by the communist empire. Read the book Red Cocaine. You can get that probably on Amazon and that sort of thing. Documents very well that the communist governments are behind the drug trade. Many of us believe that the war on drugs is simply eliminating the competition, getting private enterprise out of it, because they want these communist governments to have the total control over drugs. Why? Because you can use it to control the people. It's just that simple. And it is a cash cow, isn't it? So governments don't like interference. They don't like competition. At any rate, we hope these thoughts you can take and digest them over the coming weeks and realize that a conspiracy does exist, even in the drug trade. Until next week, we'll see you then.